Hey all, my name is Adrian and I am going to give you my collaborative tools overview for Module 5. So the first tool that I looked into was Spiral, and one of the things I noticed was it's very similar to a system that my district actually uses called Schoology, where it's a place where teachers can go, they can create classes, and add their students as need be, and basically host assignments there, have discussion boards. You can also additionally add content to it, such as videos, website clips, etc. like that. And it's also used for formative assessments, which I thought was pretty cool within the quickfire aspect of the app. And it's very cool with team project collaboration. So you can see the green team up is actually a place where you can go and create teams out of the students that are in your class, and the students can then each have a portion of an assignment that they have to complete for their project, and then ultimately they present to it. And the really cool thing with that part is that the teacher can actually be monitoring how much participation each team member is participating within the project as a whole. So classes, one of the things I thought was really unique with this is that if you are a school that uses Google Classroom, there is a way to sync with your Google Classroom, but you can add as many classes as you need. So you can do classes, like for me as an elementary teacher, I teach all courses. So I teach science, social studies, math, and reading with my kids. So for me, I would probably be adding different types of classes, almost like a course. Whereas someone who is just a high school teacher could easily set it up based on each class throughout the day. And one of the places you can find it online, there is a free place you can join. So I've kind of shown you a screenshot here of what's included when you join for free. Then it also goes over for the $39 annually. You can get a lot of different features. Because it actually looks as if you might not be like over here it says unlimited classroom, so it might not allow me as an elementary teacher to create all the classes that I might want to create with my students. So it would almost probably be more of a money payment thing that I would have to do in order to get what I needed in order to use this. But it's a really unique aspect, especially the team up and the quickfire, because the quickfire is kind of used as the formative assessment, where you're basically like in an online setting where students can be logging in the same time as you. So it's a very synchronous thing. And they can be given a question and they can answer it, and you're able to provide immediate feedback, such as I saw an example where the teacher, asked for more information on their answer, or was basically stating that their answer wasn't exactly what they were looking for and they wanted more elaboration. So the teacher was able to add that little note, and the student right then and there is able to elaborate further in order to give the answer that the teacher was ideally looking for. As far as how it can be used, you can really use it in different ways. So it really depends on how you as a teacher could use this within your class setting. First of all, obviously, the asynchronous factors would be the discussion boards, which, as it's been noted in many of our readings, it's almost better for students who are more of that deep thinkers or need that additional wait time, because they're able to really think about their response rather than in a face-to-face. Sometimes they don't have the large amount of think time that they might need in order to answer a question fully. And you kind of get more of that deeper thinking in those discussion board posts as well. Assignments can also be completed both at school or at home, which is kind of unique for more face-to-face classrooms to be able to use this, because students, as long as they have the ability to get online at home, they would be able to use their computers and kind of use the class code to sign in and complete assignments then, versus having to send home paper copies of everything, which is kind of the way I feel like most of our schools are really starting to veer towards, as long as internet access is capable for their students. Synchronous features, obviously the quickfire, because you basically are on with the teacher, or the students are on with you. So that really helps with giving that immediate feedback that is that can really enhance answers and really show a teacher whether or not the student actually gets what they're supposed to, or if there needs to be a reteaching moment with that specific student. And the students are able to see, once you've checked off saying that their question is accepted, they're able to kind of notice that as well. And again, like I mentioned before, the team up aspect, where students can be grouped together and they can be working on different aspects. And like I said before, it's pretty cool that teachers can kind of monitor that accountability factor, which is so critical. We talk a lot with online education and how do we know that their students are being held accountable, and the fact that within the team up aspect, the teacher can be monitoring what each part the student is working on and whether they're participating or not within it. And then ultimately, one student is kind of selected to present the project to the whole. And it's nice that they can be working on separate devices but still together at the same time. So depending on how much technology you had within your classroom, this could be something that could be done within a face-to-face setting, but also more likely accepted for an online classroom. So overall, collaborative outcomes, students are able to share resources as well as teachers able to share resources, within those discussion boards. Students, as we've, demonstrated in our own discussion boards, just bringing in outside resources and sharing those amongst each other within our answers or our responses to their discussion questions. The brainstorming aspect of team up, definitely, and it does allow for that reflection period. So with the quick fire, students are able to kind of reflect on their answer, and then depending on how the teacher responded to them, whether they, inquired further or asked for more detail in regards to their question or to their answer, students are able to reflect and then build upon that. And obviously the outreach and authentic learning experiences of Team Up, which really just brings in that collaboration and that project-based learning. It does create that community cohesion to an extent. Obviously the discussion, board posts could be something where you create that sense of community where kids are responding to each other. Obviously you would have to probably go over proper ways to almost criticize, sort of that constructive criticism when you're answering discussion and replying to what someone else has stated. Instructor involvement really depends on how you use it. Obviously the instructor is able to use it for a variety of formative and just participation type points. But if they use it more just with discussion boards, obviously the instructor involvement really depends on how often the instructor is checking in with the discussion questions. Interaction intensity, again, it just varies on which aspect you use. If you're more of just making assignments and having discussion board posts, there might not be as much interaction versus when you're doing the quick fire and doing the team up aspect, you would obviously have more interaction with that. And then just going into the knowledge and experience, obviously the big thing with that is just looking for ways to differentiate. And I think what's cool is that through the quick fire, the teacher is able to quickly assess what students might need a little bit more time on the topic at hand in which they were inquiring about, and to see which students were ready to move ahead, and then can easily be creating assignments and sharing out resources and different discussion boards for those students that are ready to move, and kind of reviewing and looking deeper into what the mistakes were or the misconceptions were within the topic for the students that maybe didn't quite get that question at hand. Loyola is a little bit confusing, I must say. It really took a lot of online looking through YouTube videos to kind of figure out how this was used. It's kind of more of a use that originally I thought would be an online aspect and more of a project based within groups. But in watching some YouTube videos, I was actually able to see a teacher use it in a real face-to-face classroom. So as you can see, these are just some little pictures about it. It's collaboration. It's got the multimedia project aspect, which is kind of where a lot of schools are headed to, bringing in more of that technology. And it's really beneficial if you do have a one-to-one classroom where all kids have access to, either a laptop or an iPad. You can easily get this on there. So basically within this, the easiest way I can explain it so people kind of understand it is that it's very similar to a PowerPoint video. Or sorry, just a PowerPoint of your lesson. So if you create a lesson, just kind of like what I've done as far as like what your speaking points are and what you want to do, this is kind of ideally more of a techie way of creating this PowerPoint. So you can see here on the main screen, basically you kind of create like a roadmap, which is similar to just doing slide by slide. So the roadmap is kind of where you start and where you know, what your next steps are for each time. And the kids see it and kind of can go through it. When I watched it used in a face-to-face classroom, it was kind of, you know, very similar, like I said, to a PowerPoint where the teacher had a math problem on the board. And then, you know, she'd click through the different, you know, slides that she had and the different multimedia aspects that she had incorporated with it, whether it was videos added to it or not. But she would do it, and then the really cool part was she then allowed, like for the math problem that she posted, and I'm sorry, I don't know what it said because it was in another language, she had the kids then do it on their iPads and actually find the answer to it, and then they would submit that answer to her. And on the board, she actually had each kid's name and then whether they submitted their answer or not to her. And down here, I know it's kind of blurry, but this is kind of where you can send things. You can send to just specific people, or if you are the teacher, you can kind of do a send to all when you're posting these different little slides and aspects to it. And like it says down here, you can really check in to see who's there and who's completed the assignment or not. It has lock screens where you can allow communication or not allow communication. The same with having kids being able to draw on their screens or not draw on their screens. So in a face-to-face classroom, it's pretty cool because you can actually monitor that aspect by locking their screens and locking their tunnels so that they are fully focused on the task at hand. And the same thing with an online classroom. You know, they're being held accountable because obviously they're not drawing on their screen or they're not chatting with somebody else at that time. You're able to kind of cut that aspect out and just require them more accountability with it. So this is just like a blown up version of what you can do. So you can create a text card, a draw card, a web card, or a map card. So you can basically pull any web sites, web videos to it and just kind of create your roadmap that way. And then all you do is you can connect certain slides together, so it kind of creates a flow chart for the students to follow through if they were doing it more independently. Or, you know, obviously as a teacher, you might be using it where you would be clicking on it and they'd be following along with you. And if you ever really kind of wanted to see it, this is kind of, EdShelf has a really cool video on how it's used. So it's a great kind of go see if you're interested more in how this all works. So I gave you the website to where it's found. I would mostly think that it would have to be used in a one-to-one classroom, just for the simple fact that all kids need to be on either an iPad or a laptop in order to kind of complete the assessment along with you. So ideally, a one-to-one classroom is its ideal classroom that it should be found in. Pricing is free for a year. And then they do actually have ways that you can kind of email and request to be kind of like a model classroom or a model school where you would kind of get additional trials with it, just kind of as modeling with it. And then obviously there is an accountability factor where you'd have to submit things within the year to show your use with it and things you like, things you don't like. Because they did just do a recent update, I was noticing just through the comments, and they really listened to what the teachers wanted and were changing things in order to make it more user-friendly for teachers to use and continue that accountability and differentiation that is really needed in classrooms today. But pricing can be based on data usage and number of users when it's finally one of those things where your school's really looking at using it more so, not just within one classroom, but using it, you know, throughout the whole district and stuff. So ideally, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, it really depends on how you see yourself using it. Because you can do it asynchronously where the assignments are kind of completed at their own pace and really can differentiate in that aspect. But like I said, I did see it modeled in a face-to-face classroom, which kind of is a little twist on what we consider online classrooms, where